Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Keys to AWS Optimization. Today, we are going to be building out our own email system for cost data from the cost and usage report. So we're just going to show you how to build this thing. We've also got it in code as well, so you can take it home, play with it, or watch this recording back and try it yourself. But the idea is to give you some sense into how to build something like this, and also so you can kind of have a go at it yourself. But I'm joined by the lovely Dan. Dan, how are you today?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well.
Good. And question always, have you had a frugal week or a splurgy week?
Yeah, so far I would say it's been pretty frugal, but this weekend I have a bachelor party in Atlantic City. So I think it's gonna get a little splurgy the next 2 days.
Definitely. I can see that coming. Chat, let us know. Have you had a frugal week or a splurgy week? I always have to know because I have to look at my own life and I'm like, what have I done? And then I was like, the only thing of note is went to the pub to watch the Euros. Well done, the women's England team, obviously watching that. And I bought a soda water. So I didn't even go splurgy on my day in the pub. So yeah, chat, let us know splurgy week or not. And again, congrats to the women's team. But anyway, this is a formal work podcast. Let's get into it. So welcome everyone to the Keys to AWS Optimization, the show we share stories, concepts, and solutions to unlock your spend at AWS. My name is Step Gooch. I'm a senior SA advocate here to help you on your FinOps journey and teach you all about the tools and services we have so that you can build the best thing you possibly can. Dan, why don't you intro yourself with your 1-minute origin story?
Yeah, so I am Daniel Eisenberg. I'm a senior optimization solution architect here on the Optics team, supporting our GFS customers. I've been at Amazon for 9 months, but previously before that, I was at Capital One for 12 years. Went from kind of data center type integrations into system integration, VMware operations, and then one day Capital One said, we're fully moving to the cloud, no more data centers. So I had to learn cloud engineering. And then for the past 5 years before I joined AWS, I was helping to build and lead the FinOps team over there.
Brilliant. So hi, lots of chats, mostly frugal, lots of hi everyone. That chat is there for you. So throughout, drop any questions, comments you like, or if you're watching us on demand, if you're watching us on YouTube, feel free to drop any comments below. We'll make sure to catch up on those. So Dan and I are going to talk a little bit about the tools we're going to use, and then we'll go into the demo. But we're going to be focusing on getting data this week from something called the Cost and Use Report. Next week, we're doing a part 2, so you've got to make sure you tune in next week to do a little bit more of an advance on this. But Dan, do you want to give everyone some background of the Cost and Usage Report before we get started?
Yeah, so the cost and usage report is pretty much your bill. It provides detailed information about your AWS resources, the associated costs, and the amount of usage that you get out of them. Really helpful for tracking different usage types, different resources at the account level, at the org level, or really any way that you want to kind of divvy up that information.
Brilliant. And we're not going to go through how to set this up from scratch today. We have so many useful videos. If you go check on Google, we have so many videos about how to set these things up. So we're kind of going to assume that you have a cost and use report enabled, be able to get this data, and then we're going to move forward from that. The other thing we're going to do is, like I said, we're going to do in a more advanced one. But in this, the whole point is that you get a direct email that has your billing data in it. Lots of lovely chat messages. Hi, everybody. Welcome. Dan, we also talked about before that we both kind of dealt with this concept. So what was it like? When did this kind of idea come to you when you were at Capital One?
Yeah, sure. So when we first moved, we had some cost visualization tools, right? But the issue we were facing was people didn't know to go to the tools, or they didn't know that there even was tools out there. So we thought, how can we be proactive and start sending out cost data across the firm? And that's kind of where we started with cost emails that started at the very beginning with just kind of your basic cost data, and then kind of morphed over time to add more metrics, more KPIs, budget data, optimization data, and kind of sending it to more SLT and kind of organizational level emails. So that's how it started for us. But how about you, Steph?
Yeah, I built something very similar. And that's where, when we talked about this offline, I had the idea a few months ago to be like, oh, Amazon at the moment doesn't have a service that does this natively with our reports. So I should go dig out the files that I did at KPMG. And the idea when I was doing it was many people who watch this show, hopefully some regulars, have heard me talk about my time there and that I worked a lot with the finance team, and they wanted to get reports to put into things like SAP for their chargeback and general charging. But I also had managers who wanted to get a crazy detailed report of every single service for every single month. And they all wanted these different they wanted these different CSV files.
Yeah.
Rather than me every week or every month go and do this, I was like, well, why don't I build this automation to send it out? And the beauty of it is that I could make the query whatever query for whatever audience. So if it was finance going SAP, it'd be one format. If it was like management, it'd be a different format. And then from this, I could send it out automatically so that I don't have to be the blocker. I can go on holiday and things will still run. I took holiday when I was there, and I can keep kind of going with that. Things keep going without me, and I could just check in and make sure everything was running. Yeah. So, anything else that do you think we should share before we kind of crack on into our demo? Any questions in the chat, let us know as we go through this or at the start. But yeah, Dan, anything else you think we should share with the folks?
I think maybe one question is like, what day should people send out these reports, right? Because the curve is always changing depending on kind of backdated different numbers. So like, do you have a date that you recommend? Is it the 5th of the month? Is it the 15th of the month? Is it the 20th of the month?
So I would always go, I think mine used to run at about the 15th, ironically say 14th, 15th, because so the way it works, it takes some time, guys. So the curve takes a little bit of time to catch up, I'm not going to lie. So we used to have a bit of a buffer in case any credits came in, any discounts came in, because there would be certain dates of the month that things would happen on the Amazon side before they would get to the cost and use report. So we would always do a month in arrears, so that we would do a month like afterwards, so that we could catch everything. And that's how the whole business works. Now, we also made sure that people had access to dashboards and data that was on time. So Cost Explorer and things like that. I wish we had billing views when we were a customer, because that would have been amazing. But I had to make my own dashboards back then. But yeah, so lots of things. I've actually got some questions and comments. Here we go. So after 15th of enterprise support, thank you. Enterprise support was definitely one of the things that we would look at. Also, if you run on the 15th, you have time to make an adjustment. You have some space, which is really good. And a couple of the questions. So how do you make sure the solution stays up to date? Oh, interesting. So when I built it, I mean, it's a good question because it's, how many years have been at Amazon? 5. So it's probably 6 years old, the solution. And there could be new ways of doing it. If it ain't broke, don't fix it kind of mindset is how I went to it. But I think a lot of the things, and some things we'll touch on today, are things like, how do we make this work with the Lambda function we're going to build with Graviton? Could we make it a little bit better by using row level security with Athena versus doing it in just the CUR? So we're also using CUR 2.0 with the queries we'll do. So we can take account names in, so I need less data. So I think when it comes down to this, and Dan, if you have any other thoughts, feel free to add, but I'm a DevOps, FinOps person, and so I would just keep iterating on it to make sure it used new processes. For example, if I had have made it when I first started at KPMG, it would have been on EC2. It wouldn't have been on Lambda function. And so, but any feedback for you, Dan?
I think it was something that we would like iterate with over time. Like if we came out with a new metric that we thought was really important, like we would spend the time to kind of redo our database that we kind of aggregated all of our CUR data in. So just making sure you're reviewing the data, getting feedback from the customers that are getting it to see if it's working for them, making sure all your hyperlinks work. So if you are like linking to a dashboard or to some other different tool in your email, just like always checking those kind of things. So it was something that we would review, I think, on a monthly basis just to validate that all the numbers checked out, the links were working, the data was valuable to people.
Yeah. Because also, that's a really good point. Thinking bigger than that is who you're sending it to. So just use distribution lists. Don't be using people's emails, because then it will just go off into the ether. Ironically, today, I'm not gonna lie, we have used my email because I made it. But that is a really good call of like using groups. The same for things like IAM. Use groups, guys, to make sure that it's a shared access. You don't want it to fall short of someone missing. One more question before we go into it. How do you balance when the CUR is finalized to when finance needs the data? So how did you do this at Capital One?
Yeah, so at Capital One, we kind of had a deadline of when the kind of GL needed to be set, the general ledger. And then if we needed to make any adjustments after that, we would make them in the following month's kind of GL input. So again, like we would pick a date, or the finance team would say, hey, like we need to get everything in by this date. And then kind of that's what we as a FinOps team had to abide by. And then if any changes happen, we just make sure to update them accordingly.
Oh, brilliant. Yeah. Just the discussion. I think one of the challenges we used to see less now is that people would not have a relationship with the finance team. And so the finance team wouldn't know, they would get the information later, and then they'd be like, if you have people from the kind of the other side coming and being like, oh, it's wrong, we need to change this. They're like, why don't you just have a bill? Like, why is this normal? But we kind of got my TAM to sit down with us and explain the dates and be like, this is what we have to do. Doing it in month arrears is a safer thing. So we kind of had that collaboration.
Yeah.
Great.
And I think real quick, and I think one thing that we were really lucky with at Capital One is that like part of our FinOps team like actually lived in the finance world, in the finance organization. I think Jeff Jareski has been on the show a few other times, but it's always great to kind of see Jeff's input from an actual finance position versus our inputs from the tech side, and kind of like marrying those together and getting a solution that worked for both of us.
Brilliant. So someone's found the stickers. I love it when people in the chat find the stickers, like the one you can get of me. So if you're on Twitch, then you can always find the little stickers. Find one that you think is fun. There's one of me, which I've just shared, just this little one. I just love that that's in there. It's such a unique, like, silly thing that exists. I wanted to highlight quickly before we start, I mentioned we have a linked GitHub repo that has this solution in it. So you can watch today, or you can kind of deploy this. This has got a CloudFormation template for a simple solution and a more advanced solution as well, which we'll go through next week. But this has a lot of information in it. So you can get access to this. We'll put it in the chat as well, so you can have a go and deploy it yourself. We're not going to keep all this information. But as we go through how we build it, we're going to discuss the points to kind of explain it a little bit more, to train you guys on how to actually build this yourself. And Richard has kindly put the link in there. So let's get into it. The way we're going to start this is, so the goal, so let's just kind of outline before we kick off. So what we're going to do is we have our cost and use report, and we are going to make it so that on a regular schedule, a Lambda function is going to run, and it's going to run a query on our cost and use report. It's going to store that data in S3, and then it's going to use simple email to email it to whoever I need to email it to. So the version today is very stripped down, very simple. Next week is going to be even more advanced. So we're going to build on top of this. But this week, we're going to go through all those stages. Does that make sense, Dan? Anything I've missed?
No, sounds great.
So throughout this, then, ask me questions. Challenge me, ask me why I'm doing stuff, and we can kind of discuss through it. But one thing I'm going to say I've done already is I've already set up an identity in my email SES. So here's my email. People already know that email. So this means that I have created this. I've accepted it already. It takes time, so I did it beforehand. But it means that I can now send emails from this account. So you might want to do that from like a distribution list, like we said. So it's not just your email, so it's clear. But in today's example, I have done this. So prerequisite, I've already done this step. But now we can kick off with our first thing, which is S3. So we're going to make an S3 bucket where we're going to store our Athena kind of results. So for this, if you guys don't know, create bucket, we're going to keep this nice and simple. I've already got a bucket name made. We're going to use, let's just call this 3 for today. And then what we'll do is we'll create the whole bucket. Let's give it a tag. I like to tag things. So we're going to call this, we'll just do this user, Steph, just best practice to always tag your resources. And I think this is all right. Anything else we should do in here, Dan?
Well, I think maybe from an optimization perspective, Steph, do we want to use something like intelligent tiering natively? Do we want to have some retention periods? Maybe set default multi-part upload deletions?
Let's do it. Okay, so let's grab this bucket. So definitely let's put in those multi-part upload things, because it's a bugbear of mine when you guys waste money on these things because they are silly. So we'll make a rule. So an incomplete multi-part upload, if you don't know, is when, say in this function, we have a really, really big query, so big that it actually times out before the Lambda function. The Lambda function times out before it finishes, and say it's uploading it halfway. if it turns out only some of the object made it, some of it didn't, the object that made it still lives there, even though you can't use it. And so you have to pay for those things. So that is a bug. And so you have to make sure that you track things actually working with this. But if there's any errors or things that you don't want to go in there, this will delete them. So for this, we'll apply it to everything in the bucket, and we will delete non-current versions and expire, delete markers or incomplete multiple upload. Delete markers is if I ever turn on versioning and I delete something, a marker is left for that. So let's do it after 5 days, just because then I'm able to see if there's a problem kind of thing. We're going to keep the top 5 versions, even though I haven't enabled versioning. Delete these. Oh, wait, that was the wrong one. Hang on. That's fine, actually. Yeah, delete and then 5. Perfect. So simple. Created some savings. But I think we should do another rule, like you were saying. But this time, so because this is a structure, this is a good kind of challenge. So Dan, what do you think? So we're going to know this data is going to run monthly. So I would say maybe not intelligent tiering, but maybe a lifecycle rule to colder storage regularly. What do you think?
No, I think that makes sense. I think if you know your lifecycle policies and you know your object access patterns, setting a lifecycle policy up is definitely the right move.
Yeah, let's do it. So let's transition our current versions between storage classes. And what we'll do is, let's just do standard IA. So let's do it for, now, because we're doing a month in arrears, I would actually keep it in there in the hot storage for like 3 months, just in case, because you normally like want to go back because you want to go check things. And we never want you to pay for stuff to get it back. So maybe we'll do it after, what is that, like 90 days? Let's go for that as a simple idea. So objects uploaded, and then 90 days, it will move to standard infrequent access. So that would be a lower fee for that storage class, and we probably won't be using it. If you you're more frequently looking at your bucket, please move it. And you can obviously use intelligent tiering if you are not sure. There we go. Great. Okay, so we've done some optimization already. We started, which is great. All right. Let's go into IAM. So we need to make some roles for this, for the roles for our Lambda function. And going, so IAM. So for this one, we're going to make a new role, and we're going to use it for a service, so our Lambda function. So in here, we can just pick Lambda, click next, and then give it a policy. So we're just going to give it a basic execution policy that already exists. So this is an AWS managed one. Next, and then we'll give it a role. So always make sure to give roles things that you'll remember. But I always find it funny when I read the ones, I'm like, what was this about? I just called it like a dumb role, like Steph's role. No, give it a name. We're also going to give it an inline policy as well. So we'll keep that there, but we'll open up a new tab and we'll do policies. Let's create a new policy. And I've already got it, but the JSON for this guy. So we will go through it. Or I could challenge Dan and get him to read through the policy and test him. All right, Dan. We need to edit this one as well. Also, just aside, question: Can always use AI to leverage and build a solution? I'm going to be honest with the group. I'm going to let you in my secret. I did make this when I was in my old company, but I made it in Terraform, and I made it as part of a giant project. So I actually used Q to go in and extract the code and turn it into CloudFormation and create me a guide on how to make it for you guys. So you can refactor code using Q. If anyone is interested in learning more about Q, I'd recommend subscribing to this channel. I'll put this in the comments. This is happening on every Monday. We're doing a live stream all about using Q Developer. So I recommend kind of checking that out as a way to learn a little bit more about using it. But thank you for the comment. This is the link just there. Okay, so let's go in and create a policy. So yeah, Dan, explain to the group, what does this query do from what you can see?
Well, what we can see here from an action perspective, there's specific results or specific actions within Athena itself that you're able to do on any and all resources in there. With my experience working in the financial institution, that star was not a thing we were allowed to use. I think depending on your use case here, like star is a proper use today. So we had like our own tool that let us create IAM profiles, and it would run against kind of our enterprise-wide standards. And if you had the star where the star wasn't allowed, at least permissions, again, it wouldn't let us do it. Next up, again, what are our S3 actions we're able to do? And then what are the specific resources we're working with? So Steph, this is where we need to update that bucket name here.
Yes. And I beforehand, there were a few points in the session where we need to update these things, and I need to down to remind me. As well, guys, if you just joined us, we are creating our own Athena reporting tool with email. So please, any questions, pop them in the chat for us. So I have my CUR already set up, like we said at the start, and I use the process. I might as well show it. So this is my cost niche report. So what I can do is to find the bucket that my results are stored in. So when you run a query in Athena, your policy needs to access the bucket that stores the data. Something I didn't realize until I wrote this. So you have to actually allow to that bucket as well as the bucket you're going to store in. So what I would do is generate a table DDL. And this is in case like maybe you have access to Athena, but you don't have access to the billing console. You just want to validate where your bucket is. I can scroll down to the bucket and I can see it's in this bucket here. So I'm going to grab this and I'm actually going to change it because this is my demo ID. And grab that. I think that's going to work. That would be quite cool if it does. We might have to check. All right, last 2 bits, Stan. What do these bits do?
Yeah, we're gonna send an email and we're gonna get some data using Glue.
Yeah, we have very much used some stars here, and I think that what I will do as well is we'll kind of run some work to see if we could focus down some of these queries, or a challenge, like take it and reassess how to do that yourself, or feedback. Let us know what you think in the chat. We should do. Let's click next. And I see we have some questions coming up, and I will grab those once we finish this policy. Policy, and we'll just call this very simple Athena policy. Perfect. And then once we have this, we can attach it to our role. So let's find, I can spell Athena query Lambda role and attach policy. Perfect. So now our role for our Lambda function has all of this capability to get started. All right, let's do a couple of questions. Here we go, one here. Will this work the same for CUR and CUR 2.0? Very good question. Hopefully you all have seen so much of the content I put out last year about moving to CUR 2.0. But Dan, do you want to highlight what CUR 2.0 is?
Yeah, it's the new version of the CUR. I am not the leading expert on CUR 2.0 stuff, so I know you're maybe a little bit better suited to answer that one than I am.
Fair enough, yeah. So CUR 2.0 is like that. You said the right thing. It's the new version of CUR. So we have legacy CUR, CUR 2.0. 2.0 has a bunch of new columns and has aggregated columns. So the 2 biggest things I talk about when it comes to 2.0 is we have account names. That in itself is a reason to move over to it. And then the other thing is that we nest data now. So if you remember when you have all the columns in the CUR, there's like product underscore something, product underscore, and it's huge and very complicated and also has so much space, it's empty. So what we've done is we've compressed them down into nested columns. And that way you can just kind of, it's a little bit more tidy, a little bit easier to understand in the long term. And it means that you can extract data from it. So it should also make your files smaller. So yeah, the queries we'll do today will work with either of the CURs. The ones that we do next week, we'll probably try and do it in CUR 2.0. Or Focus, yeah, you could do these in Focus. This whole solution will work with any set of data, what we'll show you next week. Stars solve a lot of problems. Stars make my life easier, but I do not recommend it. You know, security is job number 1, guys. Yeah. So lock down your policies is my advice.
Least permissions is life.
Least permissions. All right, so we have our policy. We can now go and make a Lambda function. So we'll go to Lambda, create Lambda function. We're going to make this from scratch, and we're just going to call this Athena query as a name. Now, I asked a stream I did the other day this question, and I would love to hear in the chat what you guys think. I write my code in Python, but Node is often a common one people use. Chat, what do you prefer, Python or Node.js? Dan, what would you choose as your coding language?
I prefer Python as well. Should we try ARM here? stuff and see how it goes, or do we not want to risk it?
I mean, how about we do it without, and then we change it
Come back.
to do it, and we can go into, oh, everyone's Python, 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 Python.
Yeah,
Thank
yeah,
you very much. Um, someone did say Node.js with ARM will save a lot of cost, which is also true. Random languages, I love it. There's other languages, I just don't know them. PSA, please check your accounts because Python 3.9 is going out of support with Amazon. I've got a lot of emails from my accounts for this. So always make sure that going back to that question we had at the very start, make sure you're using the newest version of Python and kind of make sure you're updating with that, please, guys. Otherwise, something might stop working. So we already made our row, so we can find that and we'll create our function. Oh no. Live. Live. There we go. Who left it in my account? Get rid of this pop-up thing. So a couple of things we're also going to do to configure it is we are going to change the timeout links to give us a little bit more time. So it just depends on how long our query is running. I can also edit my memory and storage. Now, there's something called Lambda Power Tuning tool that I would really recommend using if you're using a lot of Lambda functions, which will kind of look at what size you can do, but we'll have a look at the end. Once we've run this query, how much memory it actually needs. Maybe we could downsize it, but remember we'll be doing different sets of queries. And so using them like Lambda Power Tuning tool can like help you balance between these two things. All right, do I need to add any variables? Yes, I do. So we'll go through the code in a moment. I'm going to add some environment variables to make sure that we kind of have all these things ready. Let's receive an email. This bit's a bit boring because it's just me just copying and pasting. Dan, when you build stuff, what region do you build in? Question.
US East 1.
Always? You never jumped into the other ones?
I mean, like, maybe, again, this is just from like experience of like what were the allowed regions of like when I was in my last role. So it was like East 1 or West 2 were the only ones that we were really allowed to use. So like that's kind of the ones I default to these days.
Interesting. Because I used to stop showing me this. I used to do the same thing where I would only ever deploy an island because obviously I'm like, I'm deploying an island. I am actually. Well, that's a good thing we noticed that group because that was a funny segue. I've actually deployed an island, so I need to edit this code. How funny! I didn't even notice that. What region am I in then? So EUFM. Chat, let us know, where'd you deploy? Are people already doing it? People Paris. Some people Paris. Yeah, it's where you. I feel like where you start deploying stuff, you always do, and this region has the newest features a lot, but the EUS one does. Okay, let's get into the code for this. So let me go and grab it. Like we said, this is a Python function. Let's grab this. Okay, let's do some explaining. So we'll go through this quite loosely. Like I said, the repo that we've shared will have all this information. So feel free to kind of go and have a look through that. But what we're doing is we're starting a query. So we're using Boto3, which is the Python language or SDK we've been using for working with Amazon services. So we're going to run the query and we're going to go to a database that is in our query set and we're going to get the data from a bucket. And then we're going to do this while. So as you know, and I'll show you in a sec, when we run a query in Athena, it's not like boom, data. It takes a little bit of time. And so we have to wait for this to work. And so we've set up this while function to check whether the query is finished so that it can go and get the results. So once it's gotten the results, it goes to the query. So we can go through some of the back end of this, gets the query information and creates an email. Dan, do you want to tease a little bit about some of the stuff you talked about doing for next week for this?
Yeah. So for next week, I think the idea is to start aggregating different data points together instead of just data from the query itself. So things like cost optimization hub, like are you pulling in opportunities? Is your way to make some other KPIs or metrics, maybe an efficiency score? And how do you use the data that you currently have today or that's available with you to kind of create a different score?
I would love to know, in the chat, has anybody built something like this before? Have people started using something similar, or do they use any third parties? Let us know if you've been doing this. So moving forward, so we're going to make a test event. So this is where we can see some of the stuff we're doing, and I'll work through these elements. So select star from your database limit 10. So we're just doing a bit of a test for this. So we can go to our Athena and test out this query on the database, which is our current database. So grab this, and where I've got your database, that's just a variable that we can change. So have I already got one of these queries open? Yes. Actually, this is the query. So let's run this again. Let's make sure it works, make sure we have access. So as you can see, here's a bunch of spend, 10 lines, very simple, very, very easy to test things. So we're going to drop this in, and this is our query. Lovely. My database is this, so I'm just going to replace that. And then my bucket is we're going to change this to free. And then environment don't need, and just my query type, I've just called it FinOps Bill. This is just all metadata that gets passed in the event to that code. So when we go through, if I save this, now the moment, the nervous part down is testing this, obviously, and it makes me very nervous.
Always is.
But as you can see, when I go into my event, we gather that information out, and then I'm putting it in the rest of the query. So when we show you how we put this all together, how it gets actually triggered by the event, the good thing is that you can put anything in those queries, and you can make multiple versions of it. So we've made it so that they're variables inside the query. But let's do it. Let's test. Moment of truth. Oh, I'm nervous. Oh, hello from Lambda. Oh, I didn't deploy. It worked.
One.
Deploy your code. Oh my goodness, the nervousness in it. Right, on that chat, what do we think? Do you think it's going to work or not? Drop it in. Hey, completed. Thank you, demo gods. Yes. I know you all think it was going to break. So, what we should see is, so the logs on this, probably not the best, but it completed my query. And so hopefully I should get an email imminently. And so I'm going to pull up my emails, realize that I've closed them. Because when you stream, you should close things. Being so cool. So I will give that a second to try and load. Oh, Cloud Without Strife. Never doubted me. Thank you so much. So we're going to wait for that email to come through. Any questions, drop them in the chat while we kind of wait for our lovely time to bring up. So we'd love to kind of chat about some of the queries that you would run when you were doing it. So obviously that was the finance one. Were you doing any other types of queries for cost people or for kind of other stakeholders when you're at Cap One?
So individually, I would say no. But one of the things that really worked for us was we found out that we were originally sending emails just to the application owners, right? Like POC 1 or MVP 1 of our email platform was just application owners. And we realized that they're not the ones that actually manage the budget for their area. So we were like, how do we start aggregating some of this data up to their leadership? And like we had a really nice HR database that had your full kind of like employee mapping or hierarchy. So we started aggregating data relevant to the hierarchy itself step. So like if I own one app, but my manager has two people that own an app under him, it would start aggregating the data, the budget, the efficiency metrics all the way up to like our SLT. And then we started really getting some good questions as to why are my efficiency numbers low? Why am I so much over budget? That they wouldn't have really gotten those in an automated fashion without that kind of aggregation.
Right. Yeah. Kind of being able to open that discussion time with people. It's interesting as well. Like one thing I would recommend for people is to ask questions to the people that are going to be getting the data. So I think that there's not enough time given to saying, what's going to help you do your job? Because people are, especially when you come from the creator side, I'm like, oh, I'll just do it in this format because in my mind, it makes sense. But if you're pushing it to another tool, or if you have to think about the owners in a different way, maybe you need to use tags, account names, or certain kind of groups, asking that question, and then people will start to utilize your reports more quickly. They won't ask you so many questions. And also they won't waste time making things like pivot tables. That's not on pivot tables. People waste time. When we have access to control the data format, don't make people go and like transition all the data, even though we love making them. luckily for us guys, it did work. So we got this lovely email, which you can't see at all because it's tiny. But when I open up my monthly bill, this is the email. So it's the same thing as we saw earlier. So I have my top kind of 10 lines. So it has worked, which I'm very thankful for. Let's try and change it to Graviton, shall we? I think that would be quite fun. See if it worked. Well, let's do two things actually. So one, let's look size, memory max, memory used. So we've got, to be fair, I think the size configuration is probably about right because it's a very small query, but it might get bigger. So we've actually not too bad. But down here, guys, this is where you can check your Lambda. If you provision so much extra memory and you don't use it, you're paying for stuff that you don't need. All right, let's try changing it to ARM. So we're going to be able to see if the code works. Now, sometimes when you use code, even Python, it might not work because it has some kind of dependencies. I have no idea. I haven't tested it. So we're doing a live test to see what's happening. And hopefully my test is going to show me down here. Oh, it worked. So great. So we can actually use Graviton for doing this. Dan, what is the service that you always encourage people to use Graviton on apart from Lambda?
I think Fargate is another really great one. Obviously EC2 is kind of the generic one that we always recommend. And big shout out to the porting advisor, right? There's a Graviton ARM porting advisor that you can run against like an entire bill of materials at your company or an artifact repository to validate if your packages and libraries are ARM compatible. So that one, if you are recommending Graviton, like, you know, for a fact if people can use it, or if it's maybe like a small minor version upgrade or something like that, it's an easier lift than kind of really changing what you're using.
Brilliant. Love it. And if you're doing, always remember, you can check out the Graviton savings dashboard in the Cloud Intelligence dashboards. So check that out to kind of get some views of your savings, for example, where you could save money with things like Lambda. We just got over like halfway through. And if anyone's joining us halfway through, we're making an emailer or reporting tool for Athena to get out cost and usage data that you can build yourself at home. And there's the great Graviton dashboard. Thank you, Richard. Okay, so this is great, right? We've got this Lambda function. It can go and query Athena, but how do we schedule it? How do we make it kind of run regularly? So what we're going to use is a CloudWatch event for this. So we will look in the triggers and look for a event bridge. I'm going to create new rule. So we'll just give the rule a kind of generic name, call it Athena query, and we're going to do it scheduled. Now, we're going to use a cron for doing this. You can use. Do you know much about crons, Dan?
Not the most.
So I never know how. I'm never good. It's more of a trial and error thing when I do it. But there is a link here to help you make it. But cron is just like when you set the reoccurrence. So if we wanted to, I mean, we could try. Let's try. Let's go into it. This is a demo after all. Let's try and explore. I want to make it so it's the right time. I feel like AI should be able to make me a cron that does this. Oh, let's ask Q.
Yeah, there you go.
Q. Okay, let's see how if live. This is off the cusp, guys. I need a cron for, what did we say, the 15th of the month?
Yeah.
Run on the 15th. Oh, goodness. Of the month. Done. Let's see what it says. I'll help you. I love it. Because it's one of those things. So I'll go back to this while it's running. So these mean different things. So when you do the rate, like once a day, they're very easy. But these ones all have different things. So I think this is 7 a.m. on the 1st of the month. I think for any month, I think that's what that is. But yeah, let's see.
Yeah, again, we always tried for, I think, like a Monday morning, like before noon was like kind of the goal.
Yeah. Let's try this. Let's see if it works. Q, don't have my back. Okay. All right. So we have this. And all right. So let's go. So now I've made this, it will run and trigger the Lambda. But as you saw, we need that event information. So 15th of the month. Oh, cool. It did work. Yay. Well done, Cron. I mean, well done, Q. It managed it. Shout out in the chat if you have used Q. So what we need to do is edit this to have a target. So at the moment, it's just going to trigger it. but it's not going to give anything in the event information. So we need to pass in that block of data that we had earlier in the test into the target. So we can go in here and we can edit and configuration. Oh goodness, I had to do this. Oh, this is one of the harder bits that I'm trying to remember how I change it. But you have to change it to JSON, and now I've forgotten how to do it. Oh goodness. Schedule, raw details, configuration. Okay, we need to change it so that it's a constant. Can you see the word constant? Or am I being blind? Function is correct. Why is this so hard for me to see? Nope, that's correct. No, it's a service. Target type, Lambda. Target this account, Lambda function. We did this. Athena, live. Configuration, not version. Or events. That's it. It's an additional settings. All right, let's cancel this. Again, live querying, guys. Live coding. It's all fun and games. You can see me struggling in real time. I did this last time. Okay, edit. And what did I say? Additional settings. Here we go. We could just edit that out in post. I've said it now. I've ruined it. You can't edit it out because it's there. Okay, so we're going to change it from configure to JSON. And so this is where we're going to paste that text that I had earlier. So I can actually grab this as the edited version from my Athena test. Let's go grab this.
Did we check to see when we ran it with ARM if it ran faster at all, Steph?
Oh, that's just a good point. Did it do anything different? Let's go back. So details. So all right, let's finish that off and then and then it compare because I didn't actually look. That's good. So yeah, I kept all this the same from before, but as a reminder, you could put your query in. You could change this. You could put this as like top 100. You could put whatever complex query you want in. As long as it's in the string, then it's absolutely fine. And you use your cost and usage information. So next, always tag. So you use stuff. And next, already update rule. So now we have this schedule to run at 100 hours on the 15th of the month. Obviously, kind of what Dan was mentioning, that sometimes that could be on a weekend. So you might want it to run on a certain date of the month or a certain day, depending on whatever your target is. It will pass in that JSON information that we had earlier into the Lambda function. Lambda function will go get the data from Athena and S3, and then it will chuck it to the email address that we have specified. And that is it. That is the summary of doing it. And so now I can get this email however I want. Someone said, cool, it is cool. I think it's cool. It's quite handy.
How has your experience been, Steph, in the past with like updating like HTML emails? Because I know we've like, in my experience, there's things you can do in an email and there's things you can't do in an email.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, where's the version? I think I closed Outlook, but the version I had that was just like was just a simple text that just said, this is an email for this. Like it was so basic because at the time it was just user processing, or we automatically updated systems. So we didn't need to have any visual stuff, but I'm looking forward to next week because this is what you're going to bring in next week, is how to do that. And sometimes like adding more visuals or kind of diagrams to things, or making it more kind of engaging and interesting is definitely more powerful. This is very much if you need to process any kind of data. But was it very difficult? Is it a tricky thing you found people have had with kind of creating those emails?
Well, with someone like that is not like an HTML engineer, there's always things that I, as like when I was like the stakeholder for our email, like I would be asking for everything. I was like, I want a graph in there that's going to change with every single different email. I want these data points. And then pretty much my team would come back to me and say, hey, like you can't add graphs into emails that are going to be changing, or at least easily. And then it was like, well, how are we then formatting the email in a way that like gives the person who's getting the email like the right actions, right? Because it's easy in a graph to see like where you are, but when you just have data points, maybe it's not as easy to understand of how well you're doing. So it was always a back and forth when we were customizing and like formatting the emails themselves.
Right. That makes sense. Which is kind of thinking about like the changeability of it. These triggers, like I can add another trigger. So if I wanted to do another one for a different group of people, that's where it would go. And so I think that's what I did before, is I made loads of different triggers for loads of different audiences, as in using those different kind of sections for it. it's a question which is HTML is hard because some clients might have different engines, support different subsets, so you need a lot of checks of what you're doing, which I agree. So it's kind of one of those things where what we're going to build is the best case scenario, but it might need to be adjusted based on your work.
Yep.
All right, so Dan, what's the difference between Graviton and x86? We're going to x86. Sorry, I said sick. All right, so let's try this. So let's run it again, the same exact test. Well, we got the data from this one, actually. So the Graviton one that we already ran, it was, all right, group, I need us to remember this, 6,003 milliseconds, initiation 553. Should I screenshot this? Are we going to remember? Maybe I could just screenshot.
I'm writing it down as well, but we can screenshot.
Oh, he's writing it down. And then memory used 90. So it was more memory.
Interesting.
But was the duration and the initiation. Thank you, Richard. He's put it in the chat. This is what I love to see. I need my guys to write things down because my memory will not remember. So now we'll change it to I don't know if there's any kind of boot up time needed for these things. That's the only other thing is that I think it's going to might have a difference than we're expecting. So let's give this a test and see. I felt like the Graviton one was faster, but my feelings of how things work is not really the best sense of time. Okay, so what was the difference? So it was a little bit longer?
Yep, a little bit longer, less memory by like 2 megs.
Yeah. What was this one before?
That was 553.
Ah, so it was less
initialization on that.
Initialization. Okay, so Graviton was so interesting. So Graviton was faster, but used less memory. Used more memory. So you pay for, what do we pay for? You pay for memory and time?
Yep.
No. Yeah. So it's a balance. So also, this one is very small. This query is very tiny. It's not very complicated. We're not bringing those libraries. But it kind of shows you a good example of like playing around with these things, what's going to be more efficient. The other thing is, even though, so it's a little bit faster, but a little bit more memory, but we've already provisioned the memory. So you use provisioned memory, right? It's not about the memory you use. Yeah, of course. I'm just like checking these things. So because we've put in 128 as our memory size, that's how much we'll pay for regardless if we used 88 or 90. So it actually doesn't matter, but because the speed is faster, it's going to be cheaper. And because Graviton is cheaper, overall it'll be cheaper. Is that right? Does that make sense? Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Which is like, yeah, chat, let me know if that makes sense. Brilliant. Okay, so the only other thing I wanted to highlight is just where some of this stuff goes. So when we go into S3, I just want to show you what this side of it looks like. So in here, this is where my data is. So this is where you can see we've run this a couple of times. This is where the metadata in the CSV is. These, I believe, are the same as my queries. So let's copy this and go to Athena. And if we go recent queries, get rid of that. So if you're ever like, oh, something's not working, or I need to validate something or compare with Athena, like what actually happened? Why is my report empty, for example? So it might have come back, but it might be no data in it. So if you're trying a new where clause or looking for certain sets of data, maybe it's not there, then what you can do is grab that name from the CSV or the metadata from S3 and then pop it in here. And then you can open the query and see, oh, this is what brought back. That's why it looks like this. So for troubleshooting kind of thing, this is how you go back and see where that data comes from. So that was quite a cool little thing to kind of track these things. So we've kind of covered everything of the solution. Like I said, folks, the full thing is in this repo. So with all the explainer and information, there's also an MD file in here, which is how you set it up, like I just did, if you want to copy it. So there's that you can kind of check out. Question for the free tier one, which is my AWS account is somewhat old, but I haven't used it much. Am I eligible? So you can still use the like free things always in those accounts, but to get the $100, you need a brand new account with a new card and a new email address. So if you want to go and get that credit, you can set up a new account. and get it, but any old existing accounts will not have those features. But yeah, join back in on the session to make sure that you have everything. So we've got about 8 minutes left. Dan, anything we want to get into in terms of the solution we made? Any kind of caveats you're thinking about when we kind of create this kind of solution?
I think from a caveat perspective, more of like the ways to enhance it, I think maybe we could talk about a little bit stuff of like, all right, well, what are like easy data that we can pull via API that is relevant to cost, right? So like what metrics or what data points from Cost Optimization Hub that are readily available. So things like total savings opportunity is a great one to use. One, again, you can just get via the API itself, versus maybe you want to customize some metrics or pull in some of your own, or you can use the budget data as well. If you're using AWS budgets, that could be another one that you lay in there. But just like the more data, I think like is great, but you don't want to overwhelm the person who's getting the emails, because otherwise they're going to go into some folder that they're never going to look at again because it just is too much. So like, how are you kind of visualizing that or putting that in the email in a way that they are like, oh, I understand what this email is trying to tell me.
Yeah, definitely. Pulling in lots of things that be relevant, because and maybe there's worth discussing there's two elements to this, right? There's people who don't have access to the console. And for example, the finance team, they only had access to the bill. They didn't have access to Athena because they didn't need to access Athena. Like, why would we give them access to a service? It's not their responsibility to do. But then there's also people who do have access to these accounts, and you kind of want to entice them to go to their account. So that's like two different kind of personas that we think about with this, which is quite interesting, because they have two different types of goals doing it. One thing I realized I wanted to show, because I think we have just about a little bit of time for, is going back. The question at the start, whoever that question was, about how do we keep this, here we go, how do you keep this up to date? This isn't exactly what they're asking, but one thing I thought about was, how do you make sure the reports, you don't have to edit them, right? One thing that we had to come up with when we were doing our spend was the emails, the spend has to be like the previous month, was what we were talking about earlier. So how do you do that automatically? And I want to show this. So this is a query which is just get my spend as spend, but I want to focus in on this where clause. So this is how, when I did it at KPMG, and you might have some other feedback in the chat, things that you would do, but I would look at this, and this would how I would get the previous month's spend. Now you might just be thinking, oh, easy, I'll just put month -1. If it's month 1, that's 0. So it doesn't really work. So we had this whole kind of extra complicated thing, but it made it done for every single time. So take it, like, you can look at this, grab a screenshot. Oh, I can make sure it's in the repo. But this is how you do it. So you get the current date. If it's January, then the month you want is 12. Very simple. But else, you then get the month -1. And then you do the same for the year. So if the month is January, you need to get the year -1, versus if it is other months, you just need to keep the same year. So this was how I did it. Someone actually put in the comments, leverage variables and have Lambda calculator. That is a good point. You could pass that in as a variable that way. Because we built all of our queries in Athena first, for manual reporting, we need it to be in here. But yeah, definitely, that's a great way of doing it, using variables to have it kind of calculate down.
You would also write it this way, Steph, if we asked Q for this?
Oh, let's ask it. Well, what time is it? Okay, we've got last minutes, and then we'll bring up our Richard summary. I need to, let's see if it's smart enough. Have a query to get last month spend. Athena. Last month spend. Let's just see what it does. All right. While that's working that out, I'm going to bring up Richard's summary. So if you don't know, we have Richard, who's not AI, and he will kind of summarize that episode. At all of the end of our episodes, you can jump to the very end and see a summary of what we covered. Let me take down my share screen. Okay. Bring the data to the people, yes, and make sure it's the right people and the right data what they need. CloudFormation Solutions schedules Athena queries and email results, so check out that resource at the end. If in doubt, ask Q. Yes, starting to use Q to ask these questions or even help you build these solutions is a great way to get started. And tune in next week to scale and customize. So Dan's going to be leading next week's episode, so he's literally had to do a much more complicated version of this, which is great. All right, let's see what Q came up with. So last little bit. So, it's got year, cast, current date, -1 month. Is that going to work? Is that the same? I think so. But is this going to do it if it's January? This is always my interval. Maybe it will. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Wait, is it doing it? Well, we'll test offline. The problem is it's not last month. I can't do it. So, check this is what Q says. So shows these considerations. Very interesting. All right, brilliant. And someone also put leveraging things like step functions to do these is a good way of closing out. Thank you so much for watching and coming on this journey with us. We hope that you've enjoyed kind of walking through this process. As we said many times, next we're going to be doing a more advanced version of this, a more complicated different sets of data. So make sure to tune in next week and come back in an hour for a nice deep dive into free tier. And next week, join back on Monday to learn about Q Developer. So many sessions coming out that I'm really excited with. Thank you for all the comments in the chat. Thank you, Dan, for joining me. And that is it. We will see you all next week. Bye.